It's only our 23rd anniversary, but I was hoping it would be special. Unfortunately, a last-minute business meeting threw a wrench in the works. Roberts insisted that I attend the seminar. I looked at the agenda and didn't see anything particularly important, but he's the boss. Don't worry, Ryan Hacker, even if we go to Europe on the 25th, we can go somewhere nice this weekend when you get back. I've been working for Beans International for about 10 years now and have been doing well, working long hours and traveling a lot. Michelle doesn't seem to mind. She finds ways to pass the time when I'm not there. We have a great marriage and we have a great intimate life. Everything in my life seems to be going well, except for my demanding job. We socialize on occasion, mostly at office functions, but sometimes we spend time with friends in the neighborhood. The daughters are fairly independent, relying only on us for tuition and some spending money. Michelle and I met and started dating, and then it was a natural progression to get married. There was no whirlwind romance or storybook plot to our marriage, it just went along uneventfully, which may seem boring to some, and while I am of average appearance, Michelle is quite attractive. I am a full head taller than Michelle, and when we go out together she often wears high heels, which makes her appear even taller. She jogs 3 times a week to keep her weight down, and there's no denying that she's a beautiful woman that any man would be proud to have around. I'll call you at the room number when I'm settled in. We'll be busy most of the afternoon and evening. They have some late scheduled events. I won't be calling tonight if it's too long. I told Michelle, don't worry. Ryan, I've got a lot to do. The girls delivered some laundry over the weekend and the new book club edition arrived yesterday. Don't worry about me. We'll see you Friday night. The meeting started after lunch and I had plenty of time to settle in. I called Michelle and told her I had arrived safely. After the last session of the afternoon, they announced that we were going to Ruth's Chris Steakhouse for a special celebratory dinner, which annoyed me to no end. When we arrived in Philadelphia, the rain was pouring down and they had 2 special tables for our group in a private conference room. The lights in the dining room were dim, but I could still see my wife, Michelle, sitting at a secluded table with Patrick Roberts, who was impeccably dressed as if she'd been to a salon, which Michelle only did on special occasions, maybe 2 or 3 times a year. As I stood in the room, everything became much clearer now. I understood why I traveled and attended seminars so often. I didn't even know when and how they had started dating. It didn't matter now. Our trip to Europe seemed like it was never going to happen. The dining room exuded elegance. I didn't want to disturb the others from their meal, so I chose to be discreet. I expected Michelle to mute her cell phone under the circumstances, but she didn't. "Hi, honey, it's Ryan." I tried the indoor phone, but there was no answer. "I'm sorry, Ryan. I was in the basement and didn't get your call. I thought you weren't going to call." Michelle quickly covered the phone with her hand and eagerly talked to Patrick. Her facial expressions and gestures revealed the urgency of the situation. Patrick quickly dialed a number on his cell phone. His movements were lightning fast. At the same time, the conference director across the room answered his cell phone. Patrick's conversation with the person on the other end of the line was brief, and a flicker of fear flashed across Michelle's face as Patrick relayed what he had just heard. "I don't have to go home tonight. I'm moving out tomorrow. Happy anniversary, Ryan. Please, we need to talk." As I left the restaurant, it was raining hard. My car was in Baltimore and I was stuck in Philadelphia. I started walking toward downtown and within minutes I was soaked to the bone, but I didn't mind. I was down in the dumps, but the cheesesteak sandwich was the best I'd ever had and renting a car to go home was an easy option, but I didn't want to go home. It's a short walk from the steakhouse to the nearest bar, and after 6 beers, I'm ready for bed, and I wake up in my room at the seedy motel, which is probably rented by the hour. My suit is stained from the previous night's weather, and there's a bus station 3 blocks away, and I buy a razor and shaving cream from a vending machine, and after a few minutes, I look decent. At a nearby store, I bought a pair of slacks and a polo shirt for less than $20. I quickly closed my checking and savings accounts and even withdrew money from my daughter's college fund. When I notified the mortgage department of my decision to forego my home loan, they were stunned. They couldn't understand why I had more than 60. Nonetheless, they eventually acknowledged that it was a good deal for them and allowed me to sign the release form, though they sneeringly insisted that my wife sign it as well, and I told them that was their problem. Fortunately, I had accumulated a large sum of money in my whole life policy, and the company agreed to send a check to my sister in Savannah, and Fidelity Mutual Funds agreed to mail a check for my closed account. My cell phone ran out of battery, but a friendly secretary lent me her phone so I could call my unit. My department head was upset by my sudden departure, and despite his counterpleas to retain me, he politely pressed me for the reasons behind my abrupt decision, and he wasn't pleased when he heard that Patrick Roberts had been keeping me busy courting my wife. Before referring me to the personnel office, he assured me that Roberts would take the consequences. Personnel readily agreed to send my last paycheck, profit sharing, sick leave and skimpy vacation pay to my sister's address. An hour later, I boarded a bus for Baltimore. My plan was to retrieve my car and pack up some of the items I had left in my hotel room. I turned on my cell phone to charge it on the bus, ignoring the few calls that came in during that time, and after settling in, I decided to get a new number. The many hours on the road gave me plenty of time to reflect. I wondered if I had played a role in this, or if I was just a bystander. It seemed that in some ways I wasn't doing my job as a husband, but after a bit of contemplation I realized I no longer felt the need to point fingers and that it was time to let go and move on. Fortunately, I keep my laptop in my briefcase. As for the cell phone charger, I can make do with what I have, and it won't last long anyway. My health insurance is good for another 90 days, but I don't expect any health problems. She thanked me for the additional details and for finding retribution for her and me. I felt he at least deserved it. There were 4 rocking chairs and a cooler on the porch that was probably full of beer. Christina, older and perhaps wiser, found a seat and gestured for me to join her. Christina and her husband, Gary, bought the old 2-story house 20 years ago. Fortunately for Gary, he was handy and had to replace a lot of the substructure because of the wood termite infestation in the humid coastal area, and their investment paid off because the house is now part of the Savannah Historic District. So it had to be her. Christina thought for a moment. I'm not trying to be clever, but it's hard to say with a straight face that my wife cheated on me. Ryan, which was unexpected, he started sending me on business trips so they could be together, and I just found out by luck. I didn't have a clue. I didn't confront her face to face, I just walked away. Is there any way you could have gotten it wrong? No, she lied to my face. She said on the phone she was at home doing laundry. No doubt, I never caught them in the ACT, but I'm pretty sure they had sex at some point. Is there any chance of a reconciliation? We opened another bottle of wine and sat in silence for 10 minutes. It was the first time I'd ever admitted what had happened, and it felt bad. He didn't know anything, so it's up to you whether you want to tell them or not. I'm not going to say anything. Tell him if you want. Christina, it's best not to keep this sort of thing under wraps. Gary's put on a few pounds, so he's got a lot of extra clothes to give away, and I'm happy to accept them, as I'm going to need some. And Christina agreed to hold the check or other mail for me until I provided a forwarding address, and I asked Christina to call my daughter at the college after I left and explain the situation as best she could. It was important to me to let them know that their tuition would be taken care of. I avoided the interstate and took the old Highway 300 and Route 1 south instead. The best part of being in this area is that you can have Crystal for lunch and Waffle House for breakfast. What more could you ask for? Luck changed my day when I was traveling along the streets near the Lane River to somewhere near Paca. It was mid-morning and I pulled into a combination gas station with a small channel station marina and restaurant. The gas station seemed tailor-made for boaters cruising the waterways, and as the sign out front indicated, S's Catfish House, memories of my high school days working at Captain D's came flooding back, giving me a sense of nostalgia. 2 teenage boys were sitting quietly on the dock, just gazing out at the river. Meanwhile, from the back of the restaurant, a man and a woman were making a lot of noise, as if the boys were seeking shelter from what was going on inside. It sounded like there was a commotion going on inside, and I attempted to make polite conversation with them without disturbing them. He explains that Mom wants to fire him, but he's the only cook she can find, and if he goes she'll have to close up shop. She can't cook between 2 tables at the same time. I thought you guys would be able to help. The restaurant sells beer. So Larry and I can't work in the restaurant until we're 18. By state law we can work in the kitchen, but that doesn't help Mom much. She stood in the kitchen doorway, her eyes flashing with anger, and it was a good thing Edward didn't have anything in his hand or she might have thrown something at him. She had long dark hair, shark-like cheekbones framing her dark brown eyes, and without makeup she looked even less female. She was a strong woman who had obviously had a hard life. My name is Ryan Turner and I'm looking for a job. I don't know why I said I wasn't actually looking for a job, but it seemed like the best thing to say at the time. As the boys hurried into the house, Megan, a Southern which I knew, asked in a stern voice, "My name is Megan, do you have any experience working in a restaurant?" My first day as a chef at S's Catfish House went pretty well. I made a few mistakes in ordering but nothing major. The real hassle was cleaning the fryers after the lunch rush. I doubt they had been cleaned in a year, and despite having a relatively simple oil filtration system, the job was a mess. Megan and I spent the afternoon preparing for dinner service, and she gave me a crash course in how to formulate the Colfax using her method. She gave me a crash course in Colfax using her method and went over the menu in detail to address any questions I might have, and catfish dominated the menu, though it wasn't explicitly discussed. In case I forgot, I want to thank you for helping me out today. I really appreciate your help. No problem. $20 an hour to play anything while wait. Where did the $20 figure come from? I just want to know how much you appreciate Edward. He gets $6 an hour. I don't need it and I can't afford to pay minimum wage. I can raise it a little bit, but not too low. I can raise it a little, but don't be greedy. $6 is enough. Mrs. Fields, my biggest problem is a place to live. Me and my kids live in a trailer across the street. The owner lives in the big trailer. I rent the restaurant from her. Her son Mark runs the gas station and lives in the third trailer. You can use the restaurant's restroom. I can let you shower in the trailer. How much does it cost for all this luxury lodging? How about free overtime? I'll pay you for 40 hours a week. Over 40 you get free overtime. Are you open every day? I'm closed on Mondays. Today I'm at the salon. I called Christina and gave her the address. She had a bunch of mail coming in. Hopefully there'd be some checks in it on that first Monday. I went to Pocket and opened a bank account and a safe deposit box. I took the kids with me to get some used furniture. They love to help and I cherish their company. Showering in Megan's trailer made me feel awkward and I felt like I was imposing on her, so I installed an outdoor shower behind the dining room with some PVC pipe and a little time. Megan's husband was killed in a hurricane 8 years ago, and she got some insurance money from that accident and used it to open the restaurant. Luckily, they were both at Penn State, so I only had to make one call, and from Ashley's voice, I could tell that she was the one who answered the phone. "Hey, it's Dad. Just wanted to talk to you guys. It's Haley." "Haley's in class. We're waiting for your call. Mom's been acting weird lately, and Haley and I would like to hear your side of the story. I'm sorry for confusing you. Kiddo, how did Mom explain it?" "Ashley, it's quite a story, but it's just a story. Your mom didn't know I was going to be there. She was shocked when I showed up. I called her from inside the restaurant. She didn't even know I was there. She told me she was at the house doing laundry, and when she saw me she panicked. It wasn't a surprise party. My boss and your mom planned for me to go out of town so they could meet up with her. Caught red-handed. What do you want from us? What do you want us to do? Why are you calling from Savannah?" "I wasn't actually in Savannah. I just answered the phone from there. Try not to be too hard on your mom, but see if you can get her to come clean, okay? Aunt Christina, she'll give it to me whatever you do. Don't give Mom's cell phone number. I don't want to have to change it again. I'm sorry. Dad and I are here to support you if you need anything. Thank you. By the way, I got all of your tuition money, so don't worry about it. I'm relieved to know that all of this is taken care of, even though I'm afraid to break the news of her mom to Ashley." Michelle's explanation is interesting, but it doesn't hold water. I'm curious about this, but the pain it's causing isn't worth it. I got the check from Christina and the paperwork from the girl, but the rest of the money's still in the safe deposit box. The interest rate is low, and it feels safe. I'm at work all week, so I get a chance to eat something a little different on Mondays. Sometimes I catch her looking at me, but she quickly averts her eyes. Megan's paycheck goes straight to the bank, leaving me with so little to live on that I only spend a tank of gas money a month and go out on Monday nights with my surrogate family, Larry, Charles, and Megan. I don't know how or when they became my family, it just seems to come naturally. Before Christmas, Haley called her dad and asked him how he was doing. "Nothing to complain about, I guess. It's cramming time again next month. I just wanted to check in and make sure you're having a good time over the holidays, and that you and Ashley will be with your mom." "I guess so." "You and Ashley will be with your mom." "I think so, but we're not looking forward to it too much, especially now that we know the whole story." "Do you mind telling me? You're not going to like it, but you're right about everything. Mom's been seeing Mr. Roberts for over a year now, and she wants it all to stay the way it is because it's perfect for her, and she's starting to tell us the details. And Ashley, and I'm going to have to tell her not to say anything, and Ashley's barely talking to Mom anymore, and you're right, I don't want to hear this." "What's her relationship with Roberts now?" Mom got a job answering phones for an insurance company, and soon after you left she ran out of money. She can't even pay her utilities. She's barely making ends meet, but I think she's selling jewelry and stuff. I'm sending you a power of attorney so it'll be easier for your mom to sell the house. You give it to her when you come home for Christmas. She'll probably appreciate it. I don't see any reason to let my daughter and wife know that I have a large sum of money in the pocket bank waiting for me to be free and clear. There's a large sum of money waiting for the day I'm free. My wife has never shown any interest in our finances unless she gets a good lawyer. She won't know. Tell us where you are so we can visit you over spring break. You can make it up to us. That's it. Merry Christmas. For the past month or so I've been using Megan's bathroom, and I've gotten to the point where I don't mind a little bit of inappropriate behavior on her part. But I'm not mellow enough to plan something like that. I'm afraid that if I do something wrong, it'll upset her, and usually the kids are at school while I'm in the shower, and I feel guilty for not getting my daughters any Christmas presents. We closed the Catfish house early on Christmas Eve, exchanged gifts. Megan and the kids bought me a Subaru GPS, and we indulged in boiled shrimp and whole donuts. Megan and I talked for about an hour. We avoided mentioning our former spouses, and even though I wasn't divorced yet, Megan didn't mind because I was painfully slow to respond, and finally she took me by the hand and led me upstairs, where the depression we'd both been building up for months was about to explode. Instead of soft breasts, she had firm, wonderful breasts that didn't show a single sign of sagging despite having 2 children. When I came downstairs, the kids were already eating breakfast. Charles was smiling and giving me another thumbs up, and Larry seemed oblivious to what was going on as I ate with the kids while their mom went home and took a shower. After that night, sleepovers with Megan became a regular occurrence. She didn't usually spend the night at my house, but she felt good when she did. I think shortly after the vacation, Charles explained the facts of life to Larry, and both kids seemed to agree with the arrangement. The divorce was simple and straightforward. I was responsible for the girls' tuition, and that was it. I signed the papers and sent them back to Michelle's attorney. Our seafood wholesaler was more than willing to add a portion of frozen whitefish to our weekly catfish delivery, and Charles was keen to learn to make fish and chips, an Americanized version of the British classic. Although the entire business is Megan's, I get the sense that she wants me to play a more significant role in the operation. At first I only made suggestions, but over time she seemed to be reassured when I made decisions without consulting her, and she never criticized or complained about my choices. Running a business like this wasn't my original plan, but I feel like it's becoming my destiny, and I hope that doesn't sound too esoteric. Mark jumped at the chance to start his own business and even dressed up the gas station. This upscale the gas station and makes it look less run down. Charles got his driver's license to celebrate his 16th birthday, and I had a great time teaching him how to drive the Aura, a task that Megan seemed relieved that she wouldn't have to take on in 2 years. He spent a solid 30 minutes trying to convince me of the nutritional value of eating reptiles, and while he knows his subject well, he's a terrible salesman. I'll check back in a week to see how things are going. Is that okay with you? The gentleman's words caught me completely off guard. I was confident, but he gave me the finger and I was happy to give it a try. He reached into the truck and handed me a green piece of paper with prices, phone numbers, and state license numbers for alligator and snapping turtle meat for sale, depending on the portion sizes I offered. The most popular dish was the alligator and catfish combo, and business was much better than expected. Megan and I were usually in charge of washing the dishes after the meal, but the increase in customers left us without enough dishes to clean. We didn't know where he lived. When Frank Allen delivered the alligator and catfish the following Saturday, he brought a young girl with him, and Charles eagerly helped carry bags of frozen meat off the truck. Megan seemed amused by the scene, and we all enjoyed teasing him about it at dinner that night. Her tone was completely neutral. I couldn't tell any emotion from her. There was no joy, no sadness, no worry. I exhaled helplessly and walked over to the dining area, seeing Michelle for the first time in months. She looked as stunning as ever. Her hair and makeup were flawless. Her dress accentuated her figure. Megan stayed in the kitchen. I wasn't expecting to see you. Is there any particular reason why you're here? I sensed her nervousness. She bit her lip and shifted her weight. I just wanted to give you the final divorce decree. It came sooner than expected. I thought you'd want it sooner. She handed me a folded document. I didn't bother to open it. The house had been sold. It was already closed, so I brought a check for half of the proceeds. It's only $223,000. I didn't know that real estate agents, I didn't know realtors' commissions were so high. She handed me a cashier's check in my name. I took it and endorsed it and handed it back. She looked at me quizzically. I hope you're doing well. Do you have any questions or things you'd like to talk about before I go? No, really, I'm fine. I don't need to know anything more than I do right now. In fact, as long as you're here, I'm good. I'm fine. Thank you for bringing the paperwork. If you'll excuse me, I'm going to get back to work. Lunchtime is coming up. I turned around and I'm going to go back to my work. Lunchtime is almost here. I turn around and walk into the kitchen without looking back. I don't want to appear rude, but I don't want to spend any more time with her. A lot of people would call me cold, but I don't care. Nothing I've done to her can make up for what she's done to me. I walked to the end of the room and looked out into the parking lot. Michelle just got into her car and sat in the driver's seat crying, and a minute later she was gone and I'll never see her again. I apologize, Megan. I didn't know that she was going to show up here. I don't even know how she found me. I know it's out of my hands, but what the hell did she want? She gave me a copy of my divorce decree, and I'm not so lucky that this time I got tangled up with a charming, handsome queen. I guess I just like extraordinary women. I didn't see a ring on your finger. How about tomorrow? Of course, how could I forget? Congratulations. You're going to be a father. We got married the next day. I moved out of the storage unit. The kids were as excited as I was. Nicole stopped going to the restaurant and Megan started delivering a light meal or soup to her trailer. The day after Rush, Mark and Megan sat down and told us that it was time for Nicole to move to an assisted living facility. I didn't discuss it with Megan, but I started to negotiate with Nicole. Negotiations. And although it took most of my savings, I bought the entire operation, including the trailer, with the only condition that Mark could continue to run the gas station and the boat launch, and that I would pay him a salary because the gas station was turning a profit. I upgraded the kitchen and added a dishwasher, which made Hector very happy, and we hired a waitress to assist Megan, hoping to have her trained by the time she was due. When we rented the empty trailer she was very happy when we rented her the empty trailer at a reasonable price. Charles developed a steady relationship with Frank Allen's daughter, Tracy, who went out back every chance he got. Larry started working with Mark and even asked his mom if she could take over the gas station when Mark retired. We hadn't realized that Mark was thinking about retiring, and it seemed like it was still a few years away. Charles expressed his desire to stay at the restaurant. Megan and my daughters got along so well that they said the sex of the baby was determined by the father's genes. In September, Megan gave birth to a baby girl, whom we named Nicole. When our first wedding anniversary came around, Megan asked me where I wanted to go to celebrate, and I replied anywhere but a steakhouse. Thank you for taking the time to listen to today's story, and if you enjoyed it, please consider bookmarking and subscribing, if you haven't already done so, and feel free to share your thoughts on the events in the comments below.